Welcome to Bold Moves and Real Estate Realness. I'm your host, Staci Caplan, along with my co-hosts,
Erin Stumpf
and Tia Hunnicutt.
Welcome. So in today's segment, we have a very special guest, Edward Barrios, who is the chair of the California Association of REALTORS Federal Committee. Welcome, Edward.
Thanks. Great to be here. Great to see these fun faces, friendly faces.
Definitely. Yeah. What you do at the federal level for California is such critical work. What things are on your radar right now?
We just got back from DC, from the Realtor legislative meetings just a few weeks ago. When I say friendly faces, I mean, when we get to the nation's capital and meet up with our state volunteers, but then become a bigger family when we get together with everyone else from all the other states too. So I think what we do in California, once we get to RLM, is such an important thing to do, because once we get there, we get to collaborate with everybody else and look at our housing initiatives from a federal perspective. Our committee, the federal committee at C.A.R., that's what we do. We monitor federal issues. We monitor federal policy. What affects us in California is something that we see that trickles down from a national effort. And I think when it comes to NAR's lobbyists working hand in hand with our C.A.R. lobbyists, we do accomplish quite a bit. So being the largest lobbying group in the nation, 1.4 million members, our voice definitely does make a difference. I hope that doesn't sound cliche, but it legitimately is. Once we walk through the halls, once you go into the meetings with our House representatives and our senators, you definitely hear that once we are in town, you can't hide the fact that we're there for what our initiatives are.
Absolutely.
So C.A.R.'s structure for the federal committee, we kind of act as like a clearinghouse for federal issues and federal policies. Within our policy committees, I mean, there's several of them, and I had a list here in front of me. And obviously, we do work hand in hand with our federal political coordinators.
I'd love to zero in on the meetings with the DC lawmakers. That's where the federal political coordinators come in.
Absolutely. And I serve as an FPC to Congressmember Salud Carbajal, and I know, Tia, you're also an FPC.
Yes, I am with the freshman Congresswoman Lateefah Simon. So it's been a lot of fun watching her get acclimated, watching her jump in with 2 feet, and really the openness to work with our community, which has been very exciting to see.
That's so neat.
That was actually one of my favorite meetings back in March, because as a freshman member of Congress, you could tell how excited she is to be in that position and just wanting to hear what we had to say. So we get, as a federal committee, we get the opportunity to go to DC early in the year before the Realtor legislative meetings with NAR. We go there as the leadership group, so the president-elect, the treasurer, along with our CEO and our state lobbyists. Congressmember Simon was one of the last that we had this past March, and it was great because when we got into the room with Congresswoman Simon, she was very excited to talk to us about what we thought about what was happening, because a lot of it was still centered around taxation, which Erin will probably want to jump into. We were just right before budget reconciliation was approved. I think you guys being FPCs it's such a cool thing to do, and the relationship that you're building with the folks in DC, that does say a lot.
Yeah, it really is cool to think that we have a volunteer realtor member for every single member. People who take time away from their families and businesses and gather their delegation from their area and go to the Hill and talk about housing and property rights and all the things that we hold dear.
I think that the congressperson or senator really appreciates these meetings, right? Because it's really an opportunity not only for us as FPCs to have a conversation with them, but to bring their constituents, right, who can really communicate how proposed legislation affects them and their communities.
Yeah, because they don't always have that opportunity, right? I mean, in district, they get to see our members, our volunteers, but they're obviously, busy with events focusing on other things. So the opportunity for us to bring our members who are their constituents into their offices and talk explicitly and candidly about the issues that we've got, housing initiatives, supply issues, and in this case, fighting for home ownership. And we can get into that because that was a primary theme of what our talking points were in DC this June.
I've always been really impressed with the amount of work that the federal political coordinators do to gather the delegation and conduct those meetings and make sure that the member of Congress or our US Senator understands not just the policy, but like how it affects people on the ground, like what the actual impact of these policies is. Because I think we can talk about policy a lot, and it tends to go over people's heads maybe until we can relate it to something that someone is actually experiencing as a result of one of these policies, or without the enactment of one of these policies, how that leaves people. So I've always been really impressed. I'm not a federal political coordinator, but hats off to you, Staci and Tia, for doing that. It's a lot of work.
It's very fun. It's very gratifying, especially to see our realtor members, maybe who have never met with their member of Congress, come up and be brave and tell their story and make that connection in person. It's a thrill. It really is.
I think we made a strong effort to tell our members this past June who went to Washington, D.C., our talking points should come with stories. It's what we do day in and day out when we're working with our clients, whether they're in a position to sell their property or how challenging it is to find a house today. I mean, those are the stories we have to tell and convey to our Congress members. The policies we're pushing for today, our talking points, will affect how your constituents can accomplish what they need to. You know, it's not just necessarily a dream. There's needs as well. Over the last nearly 3 years, the sales have been under 300,000 units sold in California. It's not necessarily about the sales, right? We're not looking at it that, hey, we didn't sell a house, or someone wasn't able to purchase the house. It literally is the opportunity of somebody being able to buy a home and benefit from that, whether it's just simply having a roof over their head, having the tax benefits, or having the ability to build equity. The benefits and what we get out of being homeowners and helping create intergenerational wealth, so that in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, our clients' kids can be homeowners as well. Those are the things that we're fighting for. The stories that your members are able to tell, Staci, when they're in the office with Representative Carbajal, I'm sure that went a long way. I mean, Santa Barbara is a very diverse market, just as diverse as Los Angeles. When we were talking about HR 1340, which is the More Homes in the Market Act, and how that bill would raise our current capital gains exemption from $250,000 for a single person, $500,000 for a married couple, to $500,000 and $1 million. That will help with that lock-in effect that we're seeing, whether it's somebody that's in downtown Santa Barbara or Santa Ynez.
Absolutely. Yes. And we had members there from Ventura County as well, which has also experienced so much appreciation over the last several decades. Those lower numbers haven't been touched, I think, since the 90s. They're not indexed for inflation, and they really just haven't kept up with the prices. You get people, even like my own parents, who would consider selling, but there's going to be this huge capital gains bill. So they stay in a home with 3 levels when they should be in a single level. And so we're looking at how to make the housing market accessible with more homes. If we can raise those limits, it would really motivate the sellers who would like a change, be willing to make the move and make those homes available to other buyers that wouldn't otherwise have that opportunity.
Yeah, that point is well taken. The fact that it hasn't been revisited since the mid 90s, $250,000 in the mid 90s was a whole heck of a lot more spending power than $250,000 is today. Those stories about right sizing not only the capital gains exclusion, but the ability to right size your living situation. I have clients, like you said, Staci, that haven't been upstairs in their home in years, but they can't afford to sell their home because of that big income tax bill. And, why would we want someone to remain in a home that's literally unsafe for them to be in when they could right size their living situation? So yeah, super good points. What else
I wish.
was on the list for last week for the Realtor legislative meetings in DC? You can attest to the fact that these are largely bipartisan bills too, right? Yeah.
That's most all of these are bipartisan bills, so it's support across the aisle. All the members are very much focused on housing and housing initiatives, and that's a priority for this country. There's a lot of distractions going on right now that are taking their focus away from helping some of these bills move forward at a faster pace. But overall, they're very well received as they are going to help communities. They're going to help homeowners. It is very much a priority to help the economy keep moving, keep growing. And honestly, there is a tremendous need for housing and housing initiatives when we're short about 3.5 to 4 million housing units in this country, and over 2.5 million are alone in California. So, yeah, bipartisan for sure.
Yeah. Edward, is there an update on the independent contractor status bill?
The Direct Seller and Real Estate Salesperson Harmonization Act was just reintroduced. This is the bill sponsored by Kevin Kiley, reintroduced as HR 3495. I think this one way to look at this is it does give the realtor or a salesperson a choice of whether you want to be an employee or whether you want to be an independent contractor. The Harmonization Act would basically put the Department of Labor's code and the tax code in line with one another. And as it stands, the tax code right now does classify us as independent contractors. So we just want to make sure that the Department of Labor's rule under the Fair Labor and Standards Act does just harmonize with the tax code.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get confused, especially in California, because we all remember AB 5 from a few years ago that passed that specifically had this carve out in the state for real estate agents, real estate licensees being able to be these independent contractors. But then the US Department of Labor at the federal level went in and kind of did the rules a little bit and created this imbalance in what the federal law allows for and what the state law allows for. And so this bill is actually really important.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Is there any update on the Uplifting First Time Buyers Act?
Yeah, as for HR 3526, which is the Uplifting First Time Homebuyers Act, I don't have any updates on where this stands, but this is a bipartisan bill that would help homeowners into their retirement funds, allowing a tax-free increase of pulling it out from $10,000 up to $50,000. Obviously, there are a lot of ways that people want to use their retirement savings, but to be able to access this for homeownership is a good start for how to use retirement funds.
Yeah,
it makes so much sense.
Yeah, we started this in the Federal Taxation Committee last year because that $10,000 allowable carve out right now that you can withdraw from a IRA fund towards a down payment, that was something again enacted in the 80s. And so, you know, $10,000 in the 80s went a whole heck of a lot farther than it does now. That barely in our markets, I think here mostly will barely even cover the closing costs, not to mention what's needed for a down payment. So $50,000 would be a huge improvement in that. We would go a whole lot farther.
Yeah, there's a lot of bills and initiatives that we look at that are just what Tia and I were talking about this the other night. They're no-brainers. I think it's just a matter of helping them get pushed through the House. I think we're looking at a lot of different initiatives that can help homeowners and loosen up the lock-in effect that we're seeing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie, thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you for being here and showing how advocacy and leadership go hand in hand.
You're welcome. I wish I could do this more often with you guys, like daily.
You can.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for leading the charge, and we'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe.